Hello, English learners, and welcome back to the LetsTawk English Podcast. I'm Emily, and my today's guest is Mike. We're really happy you're here with us today.
Absolutely. And for today's deep dive, we're taking a stack of source material that drops us into a place many of us know well, being at the movies.
The cinema. Love it.
Me too. And this text gives us a fantastic look at the kind of real conversational English you might actually hear in this setting. But, it also goes much deeper.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It uses that familiar scenario to explore the whole experience of movie-going.
Yeah, from those little annoyances, the distractions.
Oh, definitely those.
To the pure magic of the big screen, really.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack the key language, see how it works in context, and then sort of zoom out to understand the cultural variations of the movie theater experience, and maybe why we're still drawn to it, even when you can watch practically anything from your couch.
That's right. Because the material gives us not just, practical language examples for dealing with things like noise, which we've all needed at some point.
Haven't we just? But it also offers this really rich reflection on the deeper, maybe more profound aspects of going to the cinema. We'll be connecting those specific phrases to the bigger cultural norms, the sort of unwritten rules that shape how we behave in public spaces. And then we'll get into the sensory stuff, the emotional journey a movie can provide.
So it's about understanding the words.
Yes, but maybe more importantly, understanding the shared world and the expectations they function within.
Okay, let's unpack this. The source material starts by throwing us right into a very, very relatable scene. So the scenario the source dialogue gives us is one I think almost everyone listening has probably encountered at some point.
I'd be surprised if they hadn't.
Exactly. You're settled in your seat, the lights go down, the previews are maybe just about to start, you're ready to just lose yourself in the film, and then boom, distraction.
Always happens. Well, often.
Often enough. Specifically, noise from other people in the theater.
Right. It's meant to be this immersive environment, isn't it? A space where you focus entirely on the screen and the sound coming from it. But as the scenario in the text highlights, sometimes other moviegoers make that, well, almost impossible. The specific situation described involves people talking loudly.
Not just chatting, but loudly.
Loudly enough that it's actively disruptive. And then, just to make things worse, someone's phone rings. Loudly.
Ugh, the worst, the absolute worst. That instantly pulls you right out of the moment, doesn't it?
Completely. And the immediate impact, as the person in the dialogue says, is that they can't hear the film. They use that phrase, I can't hear a thing.
Which just shatters the whole illusion. It ruins the experience you paid for, the one you came for.
Exactly. It really underscores the core issue.
Yeah.
The noise isn't just like background sound. It's stopping you from actually accessing the movie itself.
Yeah, it's like a barrier.
Right. A direct barrier to entry in a way. And this brings us nicely to some key vocabulary and phrases the source material introduces, starting with the word inconsiderate.
Inconsiderate. That's quite a strong word, isn't it? How does the source define it, and how does it apply here?
Well, the text defines inconsiderate as basically not thinking about the feelings of other people.
Okay, simple enough.
And it gives a really effective example, actually, outside the movie context to make the meaning clear. It talks about being on a crowded subway train. Where an old lady is standing, but nobody offers her their seat. That action, or well, inaction.
Right, not doing anything.
Is presented as clearly inconsiderate behavior. It shows a lack of awareness, maybe, or just concern for someone else's comfort or needs in a shared public space.
Okay, I see the connection now. So bringing it back to the movie theater, making noise, talking loudly, letting your phone blast out, that's inconsiderate because you're not thinking about the feelings or the experience of everyone else around you.
Precisely. Everyone else who's there for the exact same reason to watch the movie without being disturbed.
You're disrupting a shared experience, something people have paid for,
Exactly. You're taking the focus away from the screen and forcing it onto yourself, onto your actions. And the source material also hints at the emotional response this kind of thing can trigger.
Oh, yeah.
It suggests it can make you feel quite angry.
Which is totally understandable. I mean, you've maybe planned this, spent money, looked forward to it, and someone else's thoughtlessness is just devaluing the whole thing. It feels really unfair.
It does.
Speaking of dealing with the noise, though, another useful phrase from the source directly related to this problem is keep it down.
Keep it down, yeah. That's a very common one. Very versatile. Just means be quiet or don't make so much noise.
Pretty direct.
Very direct. And the source gives some excellent examples of how you might use it in different everyday situations, which helps you see it beyond just the cinema. Like you might say, "Excuse me, do you mind keeping it down? It's after midnight." If someone's being loud late at night.
Right. Disturbing the peace.
Or if you're trying to concentrate, "I'm trying to study. Do you mind keeping it down?"
Yeah. Or the example from the source about trying to watch something specific. You mind keeping it down, trying to watch the game. That's almost identical to the movie situation, isn't it?
It really is. You're trying to focus on something visual and auditory, and external noise is interfering.
Mm-hmm.
The text even includes a nice little anecdote. Apparently, someone remembered hearing the phrase a lot from their mother growing up.
Oh, I bet. That really shows how common it is, part of everyday life.
Definitely. And in the movie dialogue example, "Can you keep it down?" is used as that direct request to the noisy people. It's probably the most straightforward way to ask someone to lower their volume.
Okay, so we've got words for the behavior inconsiderate and phrases to ask for less noise. Keep it down. Now, let's look at some more general phrases. These are useful all the time, but they also pop up in the movie scenario in the source, like not such a big deal.
Yes. Not such a big deal.
Yeah.
This basically means it's not a big problem, or it's not that important.
Yeah.
The source gives two really clear examples of how it's typically used to sort of, downplay minor inconveniences. In one, someone apologizes because they can't get some files delivered by tomorrow, and the response is understanding. "That's okay, it's not such a big deal," reassurance.
Right.
In the other, someone says they're running like 10 minutes late for a meeting, and the reply is, "It's not such a big deal, Peter and Liam are late too."
So in both cases, it's used to say, hey, don't worry about this minor hiccup.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting when you look back at the movie dialogue in the source.
Okay.
When one person complains about the noise, the other person dismisses it by saying, "Don't worry about it, it's not such a big deal."
Oh, but wait, for the person who can't hear the movie?
Exactly. For the person who just said, "I can't hear a thing," the noise is absolutely a big deal. It's ruining the entire experience they came for.
Wow. Yeah. That highlights a really key point, doesn't it? What counts as a big deal is totally subjective.
Completely. It depends on your perspective, your tolerance for distraction, how much something is impacting you personally. The phrase itself is simple. Not such a big deal. But using it in that context really reveals a clash of perspectives within that little scene.
It shows different levels of empathy, maybe? Or just completely different expectations of how you should behave in that shared space.
Could be either.
Both.
Now, another very practical phrase from the source, absolutely essential for that phone situation, is switch it off.
Yes. To turn something off.
Right, switch it off. And the source points out something important here. This phrase, like a lot of phrasal verbs in English, can be a little bit tricky structurally, especially if you're learning the language.
You mean where you put the off?
Precisely. You have the verb switch and the particle off. The source demonstrates the three common structures you need to know.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, you can have verb plus off plus noun. Example, did you switch off your phone? The particle off comes right after the verb switch, then the noun your phone.
Got it. Switch off your phone.
Second, you can have verb plus noun plus off. Example, did you switch your phone off? Here, the noun your phone goes between the verb and the particle. This is also very common.
Switch your phone off. Okay.
And third, verb plus pronoun plus off. Example, did you switch it off? Now, when you replace the noun, your phone, with a pronoun, it, the pronoun must go between the verb and the particle.
So you can't say switch off it.
Nope. You have to say switch it off. That's the rule for pronouns with these types of phrasal verbs.
That third one, switch it off, that's the one that often trips people up, I think.
It absolutely is. And the source even notes, apparently the original speakers in the material had to try it a couple of times to get it right themselves.
Oh, that's reassuring. So even native speakers pause on that sometimes. It shows it's a genuine complexity in the language.
It really does. It's a perfect example of how phrasal verbs add nuance and specific little rules to English grammar. And connecting this directly back to the movie dialogue.
The ringing phone.
The ringing phone immediately prompts the question, did you forget to switch it off? See? Pronoun in the middle. This phrase is perfectly suited because turning off or silencing your phone is such a basic, almost universally accepted rule of movie theater etiquette.
It really is. It's like step one when you walk into the auditorium. Phone off, or at least silent. Forgetting to switch it off is seen as a pretty fundamental slip-up in that social context.
Definitely a social faux pas.
And that lapse, that ringing phone, leads directly back to the original problem, not being able to hear the movie. Which brings us neatly to the phrase, can't hear a thing.
Right. As we mentioned earlier, this phrase just means I can't hear, or I can't hear anything, or maybe that it's too loud to understand what you're trying to listen to.
Okay.
The source gives several examples showing how versatile it is. Like, what's going on in there? I don't know. I can't hear a thing. You'd use that when you're trying to figure out sounds from another room, maybe. Or, what? I'm sorry, this music is too loud. I can't hear a thing. That clearly links the problem to an overpowering external sound.
Like in a loud bar or concert.
Exactly. And even, something's wrong with my phone. I couldn't hear a thing when you called. So it can indicate a technical issue, too, a lack of sound getting through.
Its relevance in the movie theater context is just undeniable, though. The noise from the talking, the ringing phone, it directly causes the speaker to say, I can't hear a thing.
It's the direct consequence of the inconsiderate behavior, isn't it? The inability to engage with the film because your soundscape is being ruined by someone else.
It's a really concise way to communicate that total auditory block.
It is. And finally, the source material, especially in its putting it together section, really emphasizes the power and maybe the trickiness of the phrase, do you mind?
Ah, do you mind? This gets introduced as a key way to make polite requests, right?
That's the starting point. The source gives those classic polite examples. Do you mind holding my coat for me? Do you mind paying for dinner? Do you mind turning off your phone?
Okay, those sound perfectly polite. You're framing the action as potentially inconvenient for the other person, and you're asking for their permission, essentially.
Yes, that's the standard polite usage, textbook politeness. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, as the source highlights the tone of voice you use can completely change the meaning of do you mind?
Oh, yeah. The words are identical, but how you say them matters hugely.
Massively. The source notes that depending on your tone, a phrase like, do you mind keeping it down, can sound genuinely polite, like a gentle, deferential request. Or it can sound, as the source puts it, a little bit sarcastic or even a little bit rude.
Oh, absolutely. You can totally imagine saying, do you mind keeping it down? With a little smile, very gentle, and it comes across as polite.
Right.
Or you can say it with a really sharp, flat tone, maybe lean in a bit. Do you mind shipping it down? And suddenly it's practically an accusation, a demand.
Precisely. And this points to a broader idea the source touches on about tone of voice in English, and probably most languages, really. It carries so much meaning beyond the literal words.
Yeah, it conveys feelings, right? Anger, frustration, politeness, sarcasm.
Sadness, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
All through inflection and pitch and rhythm. So the source's advice here is absolutely crucial, especially for learners. If you intend to be polite when you use do you mind, you must make sure to keep a positive tone in your voice.
This raises such an important question, though. How much of communication, especially tricky social navigation, like in a quiet movie theater, relies on these nonverbal or paraverbal cues like tone?
A huge amount, I'd argue.
And how challenging is that for English learners? You might be focusing so hard on getting the grammar right, choosing the exact right words, that you completely overlook the impact of your delivery. The same exact sentence, do you mind keeping it down, can be a polite request or a sharp reprimand based only on that subtle vocal shift.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity to mastering real-world spoken English conversations. It's a significant challenge.
It really is.
And the source material is wise to highlight it. It really shows that language isn't just about vocab and grammar rules in a book. It's deeply tangled up with cultural context, social expectations, and all those subtle signals we send through our voice, maybe even our body language.
Definitely. So we've unpacked the language needed to talk about noise and make requests, politely or maybe not so politely, in the theater. But then the source material broadens our view quite a bit.
Yeah, moving on from those specific phrases for handling distractions, our source material shifts perspective. It starts looking at the broader cultural norms and habits around actually going to the movies. It explicitly says that in different countries, there are different habits about watching movies. And the examples it gives are quite revealing, actually. They offer a fascinating comparison. They really do. It moves us from the micro level, that one interaction, to the macro level of what society expects or tolerates in a shared entertainment space. Let's start with the habits in Canada, as described in the source.
Okay, Canada. The source says it's really common to eat popcorn and candy and maybe chips while watching a movie. That sounds pretty standard for many places, doesn't it? Popcorn feels almost synonymous with movie theaters in North America, maybe elsewhere too.
It does, and the source presents this as the accepted norm. Totally fine. However, it immediately contrasts this with the issue of phones ringing.
Back to the phones.
Back to the phones. It states that in Canada, if your phone rings loudly during a movie, that's a big problem. It's seen as highly disruptive, really inappropriate.
So the implication is pretty clear then. Some noises, especially those connected with eating standard movie snacks like popcorn or candy wrappers rustling a bit.
Yeah, those are generally tolerated, maybe even expected as part of the soundscape.
But other sounds like a phone ringing or presumably people having loud conversations like in the first scenario.
Right, linking back to that.
Those are strictly not okay. It's like there's a specific code of conduct around sound and consumption within that space. Certain things are in, certain things are out.
Exactly. And this sets up a really interesting contrast with the habits described for Ecuador and parts of South America.
Okay, now this is where the source gets truly fascinating, I thought. It mentions that in places like Ecuador, depending on the city maybe, people can often bring food from outside the theater. Not just snacks, but actual food.
Yes. And the specific examples the source gives are quite vivid. People bringing in things like, well, chicken.
Like fried chicken or a whole roast chicken.
Doesn't specify, but just chicken. Or some sort of like really smelly food. Just imagine the aroma of someone's full, hot meal wafting through a dark, enclosed theater while you're trying to focus on the film. It's quite something to picture.
That's wild. It immediately makes you think about the whole sensory experience, way beyond just what you see and hear. Smell becomes a major factor. And the source notes the direct consequence. This can make you either really hungry if it smells good and it's food you like, or really upset if the smell is unpleasant to you, or just distracting.
Mm-hmm.
What's fascinating here is how fundamentally does that change the shared sensory environment? Does bringing in strong, diverse food smells completely break that immersive bubble the cinema tries to create? Does it compete with the intended atmosphere?
It almost certainly must, don't you think? It adds this whole new layer of sensory input that isn't controlled or standardized by the theater itself.
Yeah, unlike the smell of popcorn, which, even if you don't like it, is kind of expected in places like Canada.
Right, it's part of the anticipated atmosphere.
The potential for all sorts of different strong food smells from outside would make the sensory experience completely unpredictable. It would depend entirely on who happens to be sitting near you and what they decided to bring for dinner.
It really raises questions about that whole concept of a shared, controlled atmosphere designed for cinematic immersion. Is that even the goal in the same way?
That's a totally different level of deep dive into the senses at the movies. And then the source mentions Switzerland, which presents yet another completely different approach.
Yes, the other end of the spectrum, perhaps. The source describes a much stricter environment in Swiss cinemas, it seems. It says, there was no popcorn, no soda, no candy inside the movie theater.
Wow. Nothing at all, like no typical movie snacks whatsoever.
That's the impression given. No traditional movie snacks allowed inside the actual auditorium. The implication is straightforward. You would have to eat before you watch the movie.
No popcorn. That's hard to imagine for some people. Then the source includes a strong reaction to this, doesn't it? Something like, I could not live with that.
Yes, exactly. Because for that person, the whole purpose of going to the movies is to have some popcorn and relax and have a good time.
That reaction really highlights how absolutely central the ritual of snacks, especially popcorn, is to the entire movie experience for many people in certain cultures.
It really does.
The idea that you can't have them just fundamentally changes the reason for going, or at least the enjoyment derived from the event for that individual. It shifts the focus purely onto the film itself, stripping away what is, for many, a familiar, comforting, almost essential part of their ritual.
It does. And just comparing these three examples, Canada, with its accepted snacks but strict phone rules, Ecuador, where diverse outside food might be okay, and Switzerland, where no snacks are allowed inside, it reveals so much about how cultural norms shape these public spaces and our shared experiences within them.
It's fascinating. While the core activity, watching a movie on a big screen, is the same everywhere, the surrounding social etiquette, particularly around food and noise, can vary dramatically. And that fundamentally alters the feeling, the whole vibe of being in that environment.
Absolutely. It's clearly not just about watching the film. It's about the collective behavior that's accepted or expected within that specific space. These examples really show that what's considered acceptable, or even part of the essential experience, vary significantly across cultures.
It makes you appreciate that the movie-going experience isn't just one single monolithic thing around the world. It's shaped by local customs.
That's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
So we've explored the practical language for dealing with distractions, and we've looked at how these cultural habits can differ so much. But the source material pushes us even further, doesn't it? It asks why. Why are we drawn to this experience in the first place?
Exactly. Transitioning from the sort of practicalities and the cultural differences, the source material offers this really thoughtful reflection on the deeper reasons why the movie experience, even though it's so common, still feels so unique and meaningful for so many people. It tries to look beyond just the screen itself to understand the enduring appeal of the cinema as a place.
Yes, it really delves into the multiple layers, the different aspects that all contribute to that special feeling you get. Let's start with the atmosphere, which the source describes in quite vivid detail.
Yeah, the source talks about that feeling you get the moment you walk into a movie theater. It's like crossing a threshold, isn't it? There are specific sensory triggers mentioned, like the smell of popcorn fills the air, that unmistakable, often really comforting, buttery aroma that you instantly associate with the movies.
Definitely. You smell that, you know where you are.
And the soft carpet under your feet makes you feel at home. Which is an interesting idea, feeling at home in this big public space designed for watching things together.
It is interesting. Perhaps comfortable or welcomed is part of it.
Yeah.
Those sensory cues immediately signal that you are entering a specific kind of environment, one that's different from the street outside.
Right. Then there are the visual elements. The walls lined with movie posters, hinting at all these different worlds and stories, building anticipation for what you might see next time.
Mm-hmm. And the lighting is usually dim, isn't it? Creating, as the source says, a sense of mystery and helping focus your attention inward, away from the bright, busy outside world.
And then, as you actually find your seat and settle in, there's that feeling the source mentions of being part of something bigger.
The collective aspect.
Yeah, you're surrounded by dozens, maybe hundreds of other people, all gathered there for the exact same purpose.
Precisely. You're sitting amongst others who are also there to escape their everyday lives for a little while. That collective anticipation, that shared intention to sort of enter another world together for a couple of hours, that's a powerful part of the atmosphere. The whole environment is deliberately designed to prepare you for that shared journey.
And that journey is massively amplified by the experience of the big screen itself. The source highlights this as fundamentally different from watching something at home.
Oh, absolutely. It's a key distinction. The source really emphasizes the scale.
Yeah.
The screen is huge.
It really is sometimes.
And this isn't just about size for the sake of size. It makes every detail clear and powerful. You can see the tiniest shift in an actor's facial expression. You might notice a small prop in the background that adds meaning. Or you can really appreciate the sheer grandeur of a landscape shot in a way that's often just lost on a smaller screen, even a good TV.
True. And the sound, the source talks about how when the music swells up or the dialogue starts, the sound fills the entire room.
Yes. It's not just coming from, speakers in front of you like with most TVs. It's designed to completely envelop you. Surround sound, that powerful, directional, all-encompassing sound makes you feel, as the source says, part of the movie. Like you are standing right there with the characters. The immersive audio environment, combined with that overwhelming visual scale, just creates a sensory experience that really pulls you out of your own physical space and deep into the world of the film.
It's true. But ultimately, movies are about stories. And the source reminds us that stories are, well, one of the oldest ways humans connect with each other.
They absolutely are. Stories are just fundamental to how we understand the world and each other. Movies harness this ancient power, and as the source notes, they can have a really profound emotional impact.
Yeah.
They can make you laugh, cry, or even think about life in a new way. They can offer new perspectives, teach lessons, maybe share glimpses of other cultures, or sometimes just provide 2 hours of fun, which is also valuable.
Definitely. A different kind of value, but still value. And they transport us too, don't they? The source mentions being whisked away to faraway lands, magical worlds, or even the future.
Or maybe they do the opposite. They show us really relatable characters whose struggles or triumphs hit close to home, maybe remind us of people we know or even aspects of ourselves.
Right. The power of movie storytelling lies in that ability to evoke empathy, to stimulate our imagination, and to connect us to these universal human themes.
Well said. And while watching a movie might seem like quite a solitary act in the dark, the source points out that going to the movies is very often a social activity.
It really is. You usually go with other people, don't you? Friends, family, a partner. And sharing that experience makes it even more special, as the source puts it.
It does. Laughing together during a comedy, maybe jumping together during a scary bit,
Oh, yeah.
or even feeling that shared silence or maybe shedding a tear together during a sad scene. It creates this weird, unspoken, shared emotional bond in the dark.
That shared emotional journey alongside strangers sometimes or people you know, it's quite unique. And the experience doesn't just end when the credits roll, does it?
No, not at all. The source highlights the post-movie discussion, coming out into the light, blinking a bit, and immediately talking about your favorite parts, debating the ending, sharing your thoughts about the characters or the plot twists.
Yeah, that debrief afterwards.
Exactly. That communal processing and reflection afterwards makes the movie more meaningful. It extends its impact way beyond the 2 hours you spent watching it.
It turns the film into a conversation starter, a shared memory you can refer back to. And one of the most emphasized benefits in the source, I think, is that going to the movies offers this really crucial break from reality.
Yes, that's a big one. For those few hours, you can genuinely forget your problems, relax, and enjoy the story.
And the theater environment itself is perfectly designed to facilitate this escape, isn't it?
Absolutely. The dark theater, the loud sound, and the big screen help you focus only on the movie. It deliberately strips away all the visual and auditory clutter of everyday life.
It forces your attention onto that screen, away from your buzzing phone, hopefully switched off, away from your mental to-do list, your worries.
The source rightly stresses that this kind of break is really important because, let's face it, life can be busy and stressful.
Understatement.
Right. Watching a movie provides this dedicated space and time to just recharge and feel better. It's a form of mental and emotional decompression almost.
I totally agree. And of course, as we touched on earlier when we were talking about cultural habits, no trip to the movies is truly complete without snacks for many, many people.
Can't forget the snacks.
The source loops back to this too. It reiterates that popcorn is the most popular choice, and for a good reason. It focuses again on that specific sensory appeal, the warm, buttery smell and crunchy texture.
It's more than just fuel. It's become this ritualistic part of the whole experience for so many. The source even mentions the classic salty versus sweet debate.
Yes, the great popcorn divide.
Acknowledging that personal preference exists even within this shared tradition. And bringing this up again reinforces just how integral these simple elements are to the overall feeling of going to the movies for lots of people and lots of cultures. It adds that layer of comfort, that specific sensory pleasure tied uniquely to that environment.
Definitely. Now, beyond just entertainment, the source also presents movies as an art form, which is an important perspective shift, I think.
It is. It encourages us to move beyond just passively consuming the story to actively appreciating the craft involved. The source emphasizes that movies require a lot of hard work from many people. It's a massive collaborative effort.
So many people involved.
It lists some key roles: directors, actors, writers, camera operators, sound designers, costume designers, composers, and many others. The list goes on and on.
It's easy to just watch the finished product and forget about the huge team behind it. The source notes the incredible level of careful planning that goes into every single element, the intentional use of colors to set a mood, the choice of music to heighten emotion, the design of costumes to reveal character, the creation of special effects to build worlds.
What's fascinating here is the source highlights that even tiny details are carefully considered.
Yeah.
Things you might not even consciously notice, like the specific lighting in one part of a scene, or the subtle way an actor delivers just one single line of dialogue.
Right. Appreciating movies as art means looking beyond just the plot and the actors to recognize all those deliberate creative choices made by this vast team of artists and technicians.
Yes, it encourages the audience, you, to become more aware of the artistry and the craft involved, which can definitely deepen your appreciation for the finished product and why it has the impact it does.
Finally, the source just briefly touches on how movies have evolved over time and the modern reality of watching at home, but it brings us right back to the enduring power of the theater experience itself.
It does. It acknowledges the history, from early black and white silent films right up to today's high-definition CGI-filled spectacles, and it recognizes the current landscape, where streaming services and massive home TVs mean you can watch almost anything, anywhere, anytime.
The convenience is undeniable.
Absolutely. Yet, despite all this convenience and accessibility, the source crucially asserts that the experience of being at the movies is still special. It concludes quite powerfully that the big screen, the shared emotions, and the atmosphere cannot be replaced.
That's a strong statement.
It is. It's arguing that while the content of the film itself can certainly be consumed elsewhere, the whole experience, that sensory immersion, the collective ritual, the social connection, that intentional break from reality, that remains unique to the theater. It's suggesting it's not just about what you watch, but how and where you watch it, and perhaps crucially, who you share that space and that moment with. #outro.
So after this deep dive into our source material, wow, we've covered a lot. We've not only equipped ourselves, and hopefully you, with some practical language for navigating those common movie theater scenarios.
Like noisy neighbors.
Exactly. But we've also seen how seemingly simple phrases like, do you mind, can carry such complex meaning, all depending on your tone of voice. We've journeyed through those really contrasting cultural habits around the globe, from places where bringing your own chicken is fine to places where even popcorn is a no-go inside.
Quite the range.
And we've spent a good amount of time reflecting on those many layers of why. Why does the act of going to a movie theater still hold such a powerful draw for so many of us, even in this world of endless on-demand entertainment?
That's right. We've sort of peeled back the layers, haven't we? To see how a seemingly simple setting like a movie theater is actually this rich tapestry of social interaction, deeply ingrained cultural norms, and maybe a fundamental human desire for shared experience.
Yeah.
And for escape through powerful storytelling, often presented as a genuine art form.
It really does make you appreciate everything involved the next time you go, doesn't it? The source material encourages that awareness, noticing the smell, the sound, that feeling of being part of a bigger story unfolding on that huge screen together with other people. It shows us that movies themselves, and maybe the experience of watching them together, are kind of reflections of life. They connect people, they bring joy, sometimes sorrow, and they're constantly inspiring creativity both on the screen and hopefully in us watching them.
Indeed. And this maybe raises an important question. If the magic of the movies is so intrinsically tied to the physical space, that shared atmosphere, the collective human presence, what does that tell us about the value we place, or perhaps should place, on these kinds of communal rituals in our increasingly digital, often isolated world?
That's definitely a thought to chew on, maybe over some popcorn next time you're out. So here's a final reflection for you to consider. If looking closely at something as familiar as going to the movies can reveal such unexpected layers of connection, culture, and even art, what other everyday situations in your own life might you look at more closely to find similar hidden depths? Keep exploring the world around you, one deep dive at a time.